And I think also speaking from my own experience of like kind of my interactions with the mainstream media, small though they were, that Mad at Madoff video I did that was picked up by Jeannie Moose on CNN. I mean, I thought that was very, very good example of how these messages kind of get diluted and mocked as part of, what happens when things go into the media. Like, and I made another video like immediately afterwards talking about this, is the sense that the two most important things about the video, the two most important points that I was making in that video were just completely lost as part of the coverage, because it was a superficial treatment that was just kind of looking at the phenomenon of people being angry about Madoff and not really interested in any of the reasons that people might have for that, but just evaluating it on this very kind of superficial level where the anger was the point, and not making, I think, a very conscious effort to not examine what the reasons for the anger were. And that's like kind of part and parcel of like the whole news model now. That they're much more willing to treat or to examine the phenomenon of how people are feeling without going into why they're feeling that in any kind of substantive way.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Because the Tea Partiers, we've seen so much coverage on that. But the corporations have done so much to co-opt it, and, in part successfully, and in part they sort of started it. But the reason for those individuals feeling outraged has never really been addressed in some substantive fashion. And, in my opinion, I think there's a few different reasons. I think there's some racism in play there, obviously. And I think there's some fear in play. And I think there's, the feeling of powerlessness that, people have. That's, in part promoted by the media, and in part because people are actually sort of powerless. But nowhere in the mainstream media will you see an analysis of those actual reasons. At least not a substantive, in-depth analysis.
Well, you guys kind of sound like you're talking about terrorism. I mean, just look at news coverage after 9/11. The terrorists attacked, and they talked about, they don't like us, they're angry, blah, blah, blah. But did they talk about why? No, they very deliberately did not talk about why.
Well, right, because the why in both cases are the underlying assumptions which, prop up the most difficult parts of our system. The parts that aren't working, the parts that lots of people are unhappy with, or conversely, in the case of terrorism, the parts that people just simply don't even know about. Because they don't know what the projection of our power is like overseas. They don't understand what it's like at all.
But we've got this situation where really people's voice in government is absolutely secondary, let's say. Like I tend to say, it's at best a power sharing arrangement with big money, with corporations and wealth in general, where the people, they get to vote, but they get to choose from candidates selected by people with money, because people need funding to run for office. And so basically you have a system where democracy is the second step, but the first step, the first filter of who gets to be in and who doesn't, is capitalocracy. It's whoever has the money decides. And this kind of disenfranchisement, is the kind of thing that leads to people to do desperate and stupid things. And It's not just desperate and stupid things that people do. Sometimes people try to organize and try to do things the right way as well. But when they get really good at stopping that from being effective, some people get tired of beating their head against the wall and just decide to blow themselves up. Like, I want to just read one paragraph from this guy's note here. I can only hope that the numbers quickly get too big to be whitewashed and ignored, that the American zombies wake up and revolt. It will take nothing less. I would only hope that by striking a nerve that stimulates the inevitable double-standard, knee-jerk government reaction that results in more stupid draconian restrictions, people wake up and begin to see the pompous political thugs and their mindless minions for what they are. Sadly, though, I spent my entire life trying to believe it wasn't so. But violence is not only is the answer, it is the only answer. So, you see,
that's definitely revolutionary thinking there.
Right, and I like to reject that idea that violence is the only answer, and I know that people have changed things in the past without violence.
But I will tell you, though, that the only thing that will work will be something that is viewed as being violent by the state. And I really do believe that. Because, I mean, you can talk about peaceful resistance all you want. But, I mean, I'm sure the government of India viewed Gandhi as being a violent resistance. I'm sure that, Southern governors viewed Martin Luther King as being a violent resistance. And I mean, those are both peaceful, but I think that the whole idea is how it's received. I mean, it's got to be received on the receiving end as force that isn't asking, force that is telling.
Well, I mean, that's sort of a different definition of violence, I'd say. And here, here in South America, they actually refer to protesting, cutting the streets so that cars can't pass and stuff like that. They actually refer to that as political violence. And they're more likely to do so when it's somebody they don't agree with, of course.
I think that what we need to do, and that what everybody should do, is that we need to distinguish, well, I mean, whether you want to call it violence or whatnot, we need to distinguish, who our target is and realize that it's not any person. We don't want to do violence against people. We want to protect people. The thing that is the problem is it's a system. And if there's something that needs to be attacked, something that needs to have violence perpetuated against it, at least from its own point of view, it's a system. And a successful strategy, successful revolution or reformation of the system must incorporate the sort of things that attack the system but don't attack people.
So would you count, for example, citizens' arrests as being an attack against a person? Because, I mean, that's something I view as potentially being very productive.
Zach, I think that's a good way to get yourself killed and not actually change anything.
Well, it depends on the context. I mean, are we talking about somebody who is, guilty of a real crime? And is it a situation where, that's what you have to do? I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that, be nice and happy and only give everybody hugs, and if you have true monsters and you do, if you have people who are, guilty of willfully, hurting other people, then obviously, those people should have action taken against them to prevent them from taking the same sort of action in the future. I'm just saying as a whole, what we need to do to distinguish, I think the hallmark of successful revolutionary movements, successful social movements in general, from Martin Luther King to Gandhi, like real successful social movements, is that they were for the people and against a system that was oppressing the people. And that they're in all the actions they took, they were very explicitly, in protection of explicitly not attacking people themselves, and explicitly attacking a system. You guys digging me?
Yeah.
I think so, but I mean, I think there are also points at which you have to kind of target people, even on a symbolic level.